Yeah.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to do something I never normally do when I'm doing my fiction, which is I'm going to read from the end of the book, because unfortunately, spoilers are a bit redundant here. It goes wrong. So most of the book is precisely an attempt to kind of conjure up that sense of rhythm and that sense of existing within the events. The final chapter is more of a kind of a looking back and a consideration of the future to come, not least the twinkly-eyed ghost of Uncle Joe, Stalin kind of casting backwards through history. So what I've done is I've just put a few bits from the final chapter together to give you sort of 5 minutes. So the tone of this is slightly different from the rest of the book. And this is a sort of condensation of a few key points from the epilogue. And it opens with a discussion of an extremely influential book, What Is to Be Done. Not Lenin's book, What Is to Be Done, the book of that title from several decades before by a radical novelist, Nikolai Chernyshevsky. Chernyshevsky's strange book, What Is to Be Done, casts a long shadow. In 1902, Lenin named his own seminal tract on leftist organization after that novel of 40 years previously. Chernyshevsky's story is interspersed with dream sequences, of which the most celebrated is the fourth. Here, the protagonist, Vera Pavlovna, journeys from the ancient past to a strange, affecting, utopian future. And the hinge point of the book, the fulcrum, from history to possibility, is that dream's section 7. And that section, in its entirety, is 2 rows of dots. Something that is ostentatiously unspoken. The transition from injustice to emancipation. And behind that extended ellipsis, the smarter readers understood, lay revolution. And it was with discretion like that that the author was able to evade the censor. But there is something almost religious, too, in this unwriting from this atheist son of a priest. A political via negativa, the negative way. Apophatic theology is a way of speaking of God as unspeakable. And what we have here is an apophatic revolutionism. For those who cleave to it, a paradox of actually existing revolution is that in its potential for utter reconfiguration, it is precisely beyond words. A messianic interruption, one that emerges from the quotidian. It's unsayable, but it's the culmination of everyday exaltations. Chernyshevsky's dots, then, are one iteration of a strange story. And after the dots, he has us read an urgent gasp. "Oh, my love," says the character, "now I know all your freedom. I know that it will come." She's looking back at those dots. "But what will it be like?" And that question from this point in history can only hurt. Because the order constructed in Russia was nothing like socialism. The revolution would come to be embattled and assailed and isolated and ossified and broken. We know where this is going. Purges, gulags, starvation, mass murder. But October's degradation was not a given. It was not written in any stars. It would be absurd to hold up October as a simple lens through which to view the struggles of today. But it has been a long century since then, a long dusk of spite and cruelty, the excrescence and essence of its time. And even remembered twilight is better than no light at all. And it would be equally absurd to say that there's nothing we can learn from the revolution, to deny that October's sumerki, and the word means both twilight and the light of dawn, to deny that that sumerki can be ours, and that it need not always be followed by night. "It's beneath our dignity to be shot down here in the street by switchmen," said one anti-revolution politician, shouting as his way was blocked by radical sailors on the very night of October. And what he meant by switchmen, says one witness, the radical journalist John Rees, "I never discovered." But there is a probable answer in a very unlikely place. In his memoir, many years later, the great Lithuanian Yiddish writer Chaim Grade records that the area around the switchmen's booths along the railroad tracks was the clandestine meeting place for revolutionaries. So it seems that that word had become a disdainful epithet for them, for those revolutionaries. Because what and who could be more inimical to all those who are convinced that there is one ineluctable root of history and that Russia was not ready for this revolution, if it ever would be? What could be more inimical than those who take account of the sidings of history, who switch the rails, those who take to them, to those sidings? Revolutions, Marx said, are the locomotives of history. Put the locomotive into top gear, Lenin exhorted himself in a private note scant weeks after October, and keep it on the rails. But how do you keep it there if there's only one true way, if there's one line, and all your opponents are telling you that it's blocked? In 1937, the great Bruno Schulz wrote of, quote, events that have no place of their own in time. He talked about the possibility that all the seats within time might have been sold. And then he said, conductor, where are you? Don't let's get excited. Have you ever heard of parallel streams of time within a two-track time? Yes, there are branch lines of time, somewhat illegal and suspect, but when, like us, one is burdened with contraband of supernumerary events that cannot be registered, one cannot be too fussy. Let us try to find at some point of history such a branch line, a blind track onto which to shunt these illegal events. There is nothing to fear, end quote. So by the forest shacks are the points, the switches onto hidden tracks through wilder history. And the question for history is not only who should be driving the engine, but where. Onto such tracks, the revolutionaries diverted their train with its contraband cargo, unregisterable, supernumerary, powering for a horizon, as far away as ever, and yet seeming to career closer. Or so it looked like from the liberated train in Liberty's dim light. Okay, that's the end of the book. Thanks.